Hi, I'm Ed, and welcome to Minisodes. August 1997's White Dwarf heralded the arrival of the Sisters of Battle, the Adeptus Sororitas, along with a mini-campaign called the Scourge of the Damned, a preview of the codex, and a free card building for the Defend the Shrine scenario. The extremely talented Buried Under Lead sent me this Battle Sister squad, along with a mad shotgun-wielding priest, and they have a hankering for a shrine to defend. I began by carefully popping out all the wall sections, using a scalpel to score gently along the punch-out lines to avoid any accidental tears. I then laid each of the shrine wall pieces flat on a sheet of foam core and traced an outline around them. The foam core is going to enhance the durability of the card for gaming and generally make it chunkier and more impressive. I did this way back in my first video on the channel, and I like to think I've refined my method this time, mainly by photocopying the internal walls. With both sides cut out, I stuck them onto the foam core using a generous amount of PVA painted on with an old brush, starting with the photocopied internals. Then the cardstock outward-facing walls. There are also these fiddly rectangular boxes to construct. I trimmed off any excess foam core around the edges. Then, using some cocktail sticks and PVA, joined the three walls of the shrine together. I used the excess card from the punched out windows to cover up the exposed foam core corners. I then glued everything in place on an A4 sized sheet of foam core, fixing it with plenty of PVA. Using some thin cardboard, I sketched out a load of wobbly squares, cut them out, painted on PVA liberally, and began paving the interior of the shrine. Finishing by pouring fine basing mix over the slabs, and chunkier bits to represent the rubble and clutter around the perimeter. After shaking off the excess, I applied a mix of isopropyl alcohol and watered down PVA with a pipette all over the grout and rubble to lock it in place. The next morning, I carefully painted the floor, rubble, and exposed edges of the ruin with black acrylic paint, taking care not to pull away any of the basing material with my brushstrokes. I picked out Eshin Grey and the greenier Storm Vermin Fur, then went to work using a mixture of stippling and dry brushing on all the black areas with a small makeup brush. Then finished up with Administratum Grey. Next up, I applied watered down green, brown, and sepia contrast paints to introduce some weathering and organic tones on the stone and rubble recesses. I applied a coat of green acrylic paint to the remaining white areas, taking care to keep clear of the rubbly parts. Helping it along with a blast of my Baby Bliss hairdryer, then applied another layer of green, another blast with the hairdryer, painted PVA over the green, then spooned on the flock for that classic mid-90s Warhammer look. After shaking off the excess, the isopropyl solution made another appearance, essential really for keeping terrain as long-lasting as possible. I couldn't resist supergluing a few tufts from Gamer's Grass about the place, and also introduced some moss that had found a home for itself on the ancient ruin. On the whole, I'm pretty pleased with how this came out. The exposed wall edges are perhaps a little too dark, but I can always come back to those and lighten them up with some Screaming Skull later. Straight out of the pages of White Dwarf 212 to my gaming table. A site of pilgrimage, a solemn resting place, a final refuge in times of peril. Rest assured, this shrine will be featured in an upcoming battle report that will mark the beginning of this year's 2nd edition narrative campaign. As I mentioned earlier, this video is something of a callback. In fact, my first ever video was all about restoring the card ruins from the 2nd edition box game, using pretty much the same method here. A few years on, it's honestly brilliant to still be making videos about 2nd edition and Epic, whether that's battle reports, painting models, or building terrain. For the past 10 months, I've been doing this part-time, and that's thanks entirely to my amazing Patreon community. Their support lets me put more time, energy, and resources into the channel and keeps projects like this coming. It's still early days for minisodes, and I've got a ton of ideas for future builds and campaigns that I would love to share with you. If you'd like to get more involved, I post a monthly podcast over on Patreon where I share updates, behind-the-scenes plans, and occasional interviews. There are also a few exclusive videos, like the Witch Hunt Battle Report, where the Blood Angels track down an Orc Weirdboy, and an extended playthrough of the Final Liberation PC game. If that sounds like your kind of thing, you too can become a Minisodes patron by clicking the link pinned in the comments or in the video description. I want to thank this month's new patrons: Nilly Bobilly, Bellis Mon, Mark Gregory, Juno Me, Brian C. Johnson, Colton Berry, Fez, Ogrin Wilson, Cormoran, Mark Wakefield, Stephen Nebierovsky, Min Var, Bobia L, Rickard Thurnland, Lambert, and Kat Fezzer. Hope to see you in the Minisodes Discord soon. Thanks for watching, everyone, and happy hobbying.